Hello guys, Ste Dux here. Welcome to this video. So today we're going to talk about so far between January to March overall trading performances for me. And in this year, the market is doing much better compared to last year. Last year we have a bunch of low floats, tons of vortex, and a lot of short squeezes, of course. That's very manipulated. So it's very difficult to trade because they do not form consolidations. This year, I can kind of tell that there is a 2021 type of opportunity that's coming back. So of course, we're going to go over all of those opportunities and let's get into it. All right, so the first, I want to talk about my Trade Zero account. In the last 3 months, I have made approximately about 700,000. I have down a little bit in March so far. Let's take a look at the losses by symbols starting from January of 2024. There is one big loss on AISP, and other than that, everything is pretty much all green. And there's total about 33 trades. Total loss on the ticker 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tickers overall. And of course, gonna go over the biggest mistakes and I'm gonna go over the biggest gain as well. Let's get into it. Let's go over AISP. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I made in 2024 so far. Of course, size didn't too big, and it turned out to be a second green day type of multi-day runners. Let's go over to the first day. This is where I made the mistake, March 5th. Of course, this one, it was a typical gap up short. I traded way too much volume. I traded around 160 million shares, around 1 to 130-ish. So that's way too many shares that's being traded in a really low priced stock. Typically that we want to short something that's above 3. And so we get some type of reward when the stock fades back to low 2s. But if the stock trades way too much volume, it will generate so much buyer and sellers and make the trade very crowded. And if the stock is easy to borrow and there's too much volume, you will reduce the reward for stock going down. So there's not much reward going down, then of course the stock's likely to squeeze. And this is where I shorted it. I think it's anywhere between 3.25 to 3.3. I was exiting in the consolidations, looking for a consolidation breakdown in the late afternoon. But it turns out it had its breakout. It had multiple very fast drop candles in the afternoon. And typically when we run into late day, that the stock is not likely to generate more volume going into the next day, so there's no follow-up. And what happens is the stock breaks out of the consolidation zone, then they do a fake out, then crash all the way down back to 3. Of course, this one didn't do what I thought it would be doing, so I should have respected my risk, exiting the consolidation breakout, then don't even touch it in the afternoon. And of course, in the next day, the stock did not generate enough volume and the stock panics and went all the way down. What we can learn from this trade is, first of all, do not short a ticker that's crowded and very low price stocks. Very difficult to put enough size into it, because if stock is crowded, if you want to short a decent amount of position size, that you requires a lot of shares and it will take a very long time to exit, and you are likely to push the stock up if you're short. So if the stock is higher price, the less shares you need, and it will less affect the stock on its float, and that's where you can freely be exiting and take your entry without a problem. But with the lower price stocks, it requires a lot of shares, and of course it will take much longer to exit. And with the market order, it will instantly push the stock up, almost $1. Also, if the stock trades over 100 million volume, I'll say before 1 o'clock, if the stock is not gaining up 1,000%, 2,000% in the consolidations, if it's only up to 400%, it's not really worth it. If it's too cheap, definitely made a mistake, and it will be something that I'll try not to make going into later this year.
Interested in trading like Ste Dux? It all starts with choosing the right broker. Dux Trading has partnered with Centerpoint Securities to supercharge your trading journey. By joining Centerpoint Securities through Dux Trading, you can unlock CP Edge, a suite of top-tier trading tools valued at over $6,000 right at your fingertips. Gain an edge in your trading with real-time scanners, cutting-edge news, and a personalized trading journal. Experience trading like never before, with superior short inventory, dedicated support, buttery smooth trade execution, and the opportunity to earn interest on any of your idle funds. Plus, enjoy competitive pricing that suits your trading style. Ready to elevate your trading? Simply click the link in the description below to get started. Now, let's dive back into the content.
biggest gain will be CPOP. So this one was played multiple times into bounce short, and it was made a total of 3 to 4 attempts. So first of all, we had a push all the way to 8 against the pre-market high. That was typical gap up short. Going to the next day, this was a bounce short going to the yesterday's resistance. So this will be the biggest profit that was made. I made about 100K on the way down, covered in around 5.5. I was about to take an entry around 9, but skipped it, slipped through. So it's late afternoon. 100K here, 50K here, then another 100K going to another bounce short with stock going from 4 to 9, then shorted again, made up another 50K. And then that's the 3 trades that I made on the same ticker. Each time made about 60K-ish, total of 200K. This is a regular pattern that wasn't very crowded, and it was testing on the top of the resistance, did create enough range, so it's definitely shortable. The only thing that's not good for this one, it's low float. Something to remember is whenever you're shorting a ticker that's very cheap, and AISP, the reason why it's asking so much, you can kind of tell that the float is 12 million to 18 million, traded 200 million shares March 5th. So even though when the flow is really big, if the share trades large enough that you will rotate the same amount of times that a low flow will rotate, like CPOP. So let's say CPOP traded 17 million shares. First day traded 42. Right, let's assume it's 42. Float is about 1 million, 1.3 million. So we rotated about 30 something times. For AISP, that we have 12 million shares at that day, 200 million shares traded. So we rotated about 10 times. And the bigger volume that it gets on the intraday level, you want to use that to divide by the flow to see how many rotation that happened on that day. If it trades a large amount of volume, that means the rotation number is going to be very similar to the ticker that trades on a low flow area, which would be 1 to 2 million. So that you have to be very careful. And also when the stock is getting cheap, be aware of how much size you are going in, and do not make the mistakes that I do. I think the 270K losses I was taking on this year. First of all, if the stock breaks out its consolidations, and that's where you exit, that's where I did exit. And there's multiple attempts I did in the afternoon trying to aim for a breakdown or a fake out, goes all the way down to 3. And that's where I took the major loss. The first breakout, I only took less than 100K. Then each time on the fake outs, up and downs, that was the rest of the losses. Each time was 75K to 60K-ish. That's where the major loss came in. So it was multiple attempts. It's not one go that I didn't know sizing too big, but the size wasn't a problem. It's the multiple attempt go into a crowded tickers and a breakout finishing in the end of the day. As I talked about in the previous video, that you do not want to attempt multiple trade in one day after you take an initial big loss. Multiple attempts after that without a very good conviction to be able to tell what pattern it is, which I couldn't really tell. It was just based on a fake out theory. Now it's not really supported by statistics, and sometimes it doesn't really work. The range wasn't very enough because the consolidation breakout at 3, which traded 160 million shares, the breakout level becomes the support, which is another 160 million support. So shorting around 5, aiming to cover at 3, it's not very ideal. That's not a very standard reward for short sellers to go for. Those are the 1 losses and 1 gain that really stand out throughout the year so far. So I was happy to share my losses and take my lessons so I get to learn from it and move forward. Of course, gonna improve my discipline and also improve my consistencies. So do not, when you make a mistakes, learn from it and move forward. Do not be carried by losses too far. Stay away from low price tickers that's very crowded. Also, once the consolidation breakout happens, do not make multiple attempts in the afternoon. Also, make sure you have a good conviction to be able to tell what pattern it is to trade in the future. For CPOP, not just a regular gain, for multiple attempts for bounce short. Alright guys, that'll be the 2 trades, biggest losses and biggest wins for the year. And there's a lot of tickers that happened this year, but of course, I'm gonna share my biggest losses so you guys can take away what I learned. And trading has to be always improving based on yourself. And hopefully you learned something today. Don't forget, make sure you click the like button and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next one.